the Minnesota Lynx walked into San Francisco with their swagger still stained by last autumn's overtime heartbreak. Yet by the time they walked out 7 wins, 0 losses. One Nisor superstar turned Thunderbolt reborn. The entire WNBA felt the floor tilt. Golden State's Valkyries had thrown a carnival around their first sellout. 19,000 fans draped in bright aqua, confetti cannons primed, broadcast drones swooping overhead for an expansion-era feel-good montage. Then the ball went. Up, Napheesa Collier planted that left leg everyone whispered about, arose for a silky 15-footer, and the sound of net snapping shut might as well have been a starter's pistol. It was the kind of opener that drains nervous energy from teammates and stuffs it straight into opponents' skulls. Viewers at home could almost hear the collective hush rolling across Chase Center's balcony railings as if a storm cloud had barged inside the building without buying a ticket. In one blink, the reigning finals runner-up reminded the league that heartbreak is a forge, not a funeral, and Collier's very first make hinted at a night begging to be clipped, looped, and meme-stitched into highlight reels titled MVP Campaign Activated. That single jumper mattered because it delivered 3 parcels of news at once. Collier's knee soreness was obviously pain-managed, not crisis. Minnesota's offense could lean on her without a minute-restriction leash. State's dream of stealing validation points from a weary favorite would now have to survive a superstar steeped in vindictive purpose. The Valkyries did land an early Jabruki wing. Kate Martin splashed to corner 3s. The crowd blew the roof clean off. First quarter graphics flashed Vox lead 19-17. Yet inside, Lynx huddles you could trace pulse rates by eye contact alone. No player's expression twitched. Cheryl Reeve, ever the stoic architect, told her team to tighten the angle, not the nerves. Translation: stop dying on pin downs. Rotate a beat sooner. Let a fence unfurl naturally. 6 possessions later, Courtney Williams drilled a right wing. Pull-up, Natisha Heedman ripped a swipe hand score, and the scoreboard resumed marching to a Minnesota cadence. But the real pivot arrived once Collier unleashed her 2-way metabolism, 1 coast-to-coast euro, 1 chase-down block, 1 skip-pass 3-on. Suddenly Golden State looked less like a crowd favorite and more like a science experiment trying to bottle lightning with rookie gloves. Minnesota's third quarter felt like a physics lecture. Every defensive switch reduced space. Every hedge forced the ball sideways. Every rebound triggered a secondary break that attacked before Golden State's rookies could name their assignments. Collier devoured that stretch, piling 13 points on 6 of -7 shooting, snatching for boards, tossing an overhead dime to Kayla McBride that carved the arc like a boomerang. By the time the buzzer spilled into the fourth, the Lynx had detonated, a 27-8 avalanche, and drained enough confidence from the Valkyries that cameras caught head coach Trisha Trammell whispering reminders to breathe. Courtney Williams punctuated the surge with a hanging lefty runner that banked soft as chiffon, and Heedman's grin told every YouTuber editing on the fly exactly where to splice the moment the game broke montage. Golden State still punched. Back Martin scrounged a late putback. Kennedy Burke raced the length for a layup, but each dent met a swift patch of Minnesota poise. Collier capped her night with a turnaround over double help that barely grazed rim on its way down, smirking, as if to say the knee never held a vote. Every broadcast stat bug now flashed 24 points, 11 boards, 2 pilfered balls, 64% true shooting, all in a return game she wasn't guaranteed to finish, let alone dominate. Those raw numbers might read like any winter box score, but context slingshots them straight into award season chatter. Through 7 contests, Collier averages 23.6 points, 9.8 rebounds, 3.7 assists, and a league-best 1.6 steals while shooting 53% from the floor. Raptor and EPM both place her in top slot for wins above replacement. Vegas books now peg her at plus 184 MVP, a line that shortened from plus 400 just a week earlier and vaulted past a sidelined Caitlin Clark, rehabbing Aja Wilson, and a stat-pacing Breena Stewart in one revision. You can almost taste the algorithmic frenzy. Highlight titles morph from quiet star to inevitable queen. Graphic designers overlay crowns. And comment sections argue whether early season scheduling luck inflates her resume or whether we're overdue in recognizing Collier's Alcourt stranglehold ever since motherhood multiplied her determination. And sneaking behind that debate is the bigger, juicier friction point, remember? The Lynx were one overtime stop away from last year's trophy before New York's flamethrower offense turned their dreams into ash. 7 months later, they're perfect while the Liberty dropped the occasional Tuesday matinee. So every Collier for MVP voice doubles as a Minnesota for Revenge tour. Whisper that goosebumps anyone still rewatching last year's game. 5 meltdown yet perfect records age like produce when the schedule snarls. And Minnesota's upcoming calendar sharpens like a set of steak knives. A road night in Phoenix where Diana Taurasi's last lap swagger nestles inside a desert furnace, followed 48 hours later by an Aces juggernaut that quietly fixed its post defense. Then a coast-to-coast sprint into Brooklyn where the Liberty's 19-3 hysterics recently flattened Connecticut by 48. Cheryl Reeve calls it the gauntlet that tells truths. If the Lynx exit that Bermuda Triangle still undefeated, they'll tie the 2016 Sparks for best start in WNBA memory. If they scuffle, analysts will freeze frame every bench rotation. Looking for fatigue fractures? Vegas oddsmakers know the math. 12-0 would firestorm Collier's MVP odds south of even money. A single misstep opens the door for Stewart or a re-healthy Wilson. So every upcoming second quarter will pulse with layered stakesome VP momentum. Seeding leverage, mental bragging rights, and YouTube editors have already created placeholders labeled streak dies here, just in case. Inside Minnesota's practice facility. However, self-congratulation barely sniffs the air. Collier told reporters the locker room hasn't earned streamers. Courtney Williams calls the 7-0 record just 7 lines on a spreadsheet. Reeve plays the dual card of humility and paranoia, praising transition defense in one breath. Scolding bench lapses the next. Privately, the coaching staff obsesses over stamina through 7 games. Starters log 29 minutes per night, 4th highest league-wide. McBride's nurses plantar soreness. Heedman treats a sore thumb. And Williams drapes ice across both knees after every film session. Minnesota's brutalist half-court switching scheme gobbles energy. Reeve lifted concepts from FIBA footage of Spain's women's national team, tailored them to Collier's length, then hammered fundamentals until switching became second nature. But that system demands cardio tax. It chews hamstrings and calves. Can the Lynx sustain bloodthirst intensity across 4 games in 7 days without chipping muscle fiber? That physiological cliffhanger threads through every interview. Each answer a potential foreshadow if subtitles dissect micro-grimaces. Depth. 2. Shadows optimism. Minnesota's bench scored 14 total against Golden State, a worrying contrast to the Liberty of New York's flame-throwing reserves or Las Vegas's multifaceted second unit. General manager Claire Duelius monitors the overseas market for a 3-and-D wing. Ket. League cap quirks require releasing someone to create space. Ket roster calculus intersects with ego management cut, a locker room favorite, and morale may wobble just as schedule spikes. Reeve refuses to sacrifice chemistry at the altar of depth, reminding press that the 2011 title squad won rings with 7-woman rotations when stakes rose. History comforts fans but doesn't quiet message board speculation. Could the Lynx dangle a 2026 second-rounder for Phoenix shooter Carly Samuelson? Would the Sparks release a stretch big once playoff odds fade? Each rumor triggers new thumbnails. Secret weapon incoming or Lynx depth disaster looming. Lines of text engineered to bait both believers and doomscrollers. While front office spreadsheets hum, Collier herself becomes the gravitational center of broadcast storytelling. Commentators lean on her motherhood arc training at dawn. Toddler clapping courtside, spouse Seton Keogh capturing behind-the-scenes reels that melt hearts and juice engagement. Sponsors pivot from broad brand alignment to personal narrative partnerships. A diaper company signs a limited edition fee and Me Line. A tech startup outfits her home gym with smart floor sensors, filming collabs that double as performance science. Vignettes. Each activation multiplies her Q score, which circles back into MVP math. Visibility influences voter subconscious subconscious more than any analyst confesses. And still, inside those partnerships, Collier threads humility. She credits teammates. First, tags trainers in social posts, laughs at herself missing left-hand floaters in practice B-roll. That authenticity inoculates against backlash. And YouTube storytellers harvest the duality. Unstoppable competitor meets relatable working mom. Every clip of her sprinting back in transition, then kneeling on hardwood to hype on her daughter, detonates comment sections with MVP already. If Minnesota's brand stakes feel sky high, consider Golden State's vantage point. The Valkyries' first expansion team in nearly a decade just collided with a litmus test that wrote headlines in neon. Kate Martin's hot start flickered into 14 points by half, yet she finished 16 on 4 of -12 because Minnesota suffocated first read actions. No shame rookie walls exist, but the tape now loops in every scouting room showing how to stifle the Vox motion sets. Golden State assistant Tanisha Wright lamented dead legs in rotation post-game, acknowledging that pro physicality slaps different than training camp scrimmages. The lesson for YouTube spin doctors: undefeated juggernaut sells. But expansion innocence sells too, especially when framed against Collier's storm. David meets Goliath narratives always attract both sides of the empathy spectrum. Difference Saturday was that David briefly flashed a sling, then Goliath snapped it in half, yet narratives pivot quickly in a league surfing daily plot twists. Suppose the Lynx stumble in Phoenix heat exhaustion. Taurasi heat check. Ref swallow whistles suddenly, the unstoppable engine coughs. Suppose New York annihilates Minnesota at Barclays 3 nights later. Then highlight packages rename the undefeated start as Fool's Gold. Every undefeated dream tiptoes on eggshells because perfection sells until it doesn't. Then everyone remembers they predicted regression. Collier knows. She lost her rookie year running mate Maya. More to hiatus, endured rebuild doldrums, then fought back to finals only to see Liberty confetti. Perfection illusions vanish easier than they crystallize. That existential dread of vulnerability explains why her post-game quotes drip caution. 7-0 means nothing come. Cuss. Still, she smiles when asked if the streak motivates morning lifts. Competitive fires don't require public gasoline in the bigger television chessboard. The undefeated March spices up a broadcast schedule previously painted Liberty feveruses. ESPN flexes more Lynx slots into prime viewing. Regional partners petition the league to protect Minnesota's late-season showdowns from streaming exclusives. Advertisers design split-screen teasers. Collier's fadeaway beside Stewart's step back. Collier's chase-down block mirrored with Wilson's Euro pivot. Those packages set the table for a possible three-way MVP fight. Collier for depth-driven excellence, Stewart for statistical eruption, Wilson for narrative dynasty. Yet Wilson's lingering hip soreness steals a slice of her minutes. Stewart's turnover rate spikes when Liberty flirt with extreme 5-out sets, and Collier stands as the only candidate with both bulletproof health and undefeated record. Odds, scribes, drool all the while. Minnesota feeds tension by erasing mid-range good not great looks and weaponizing rim protection without a true goon in the paint. Opponents manage a league-worst 28% from deep versus their closeouts. Testament to 5-player length choreography. Reeves film sessions track hot zone smother percentage, a proprietary stat measuring contested airspace within 2 feet of shooter release. Collier leads by miles. McBride sneaks second. Bench rookie Alyssa Pilley cracks top 5 despite smelling minutes sporadically. Such internal metrics leak just enough to stoke analytical Reddit threads that treat defense like conspiracy art. Statistics. Lore 1 audience slice. Slow-motion breakdowns of Collier stunting into passing lanes. Lore another. Every angle multiplies watch time, but numbers fade if Warren Tear wins the war. June's 4-7 gauntlet will shove ankles against tape jobs, test core stability, and challenge mental focus as flights hop time zones. Minnesota's training staff builds recovery pods in hotel ballrooms' compression sleeves. Normatec boots, blue light blocking goggles. Collier Collier logs 8-hour sleep windows in ARA rings. Coaches fine players for late-night caffeine. Key. They learned from last year's finals fade-out that micro-recovery means macro rings. Key. Yet no device shields adrenaline spikes. If Phoenix drags them into overtime, cortisol floods muscles, and elasticity dips 8% for the next 48 hours. On margins that small, undefeated illusions meet biological ceilings. Reeve preaches hydration as if it's a pre-game set. The players listen, but no one can schedule organic cold fronts. While the team stitches performance science into routine, social media does its